the importance of electrical connections and insulation. All of this was, as I wasn't an engineer, I didn't use it in my business life as an engineer would, in designing or anything like that. But I was familiar with what these things did and who made them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting.
Yes. Now, let's see, I guess Uncle Mac,
Yeah.
he used to be, let's see, I know that he was the top scholar at the Choate School.
Yeah.
I think it's called the Seal Prize winner for 3 years in a row, which
Right.
is a feat that has yet to be topped.
Yeah.
And his name is prominently displayed 3 years in a row, which is again, unprecedented, and to this day. How did you? I think you had said he had taken over the New York Times distribution at Harvard.
He and I think a partner, maybe Davy Moore. Anyway, he took over the New York Times agency from Henry Ritter and me, and spent part of his time working with us, and then when we graduated, he had the agency.
So you did work with him for a year.
As far as I know, he had a scholarship, but he still, as most students on scholarship, and particularly those from the Middle West, I'd say, had student employment as well as scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And his student employment job was taking over the New York Times agency.
So at the
How he
Choate
did
School,
scholastically at that time and for the next year or so, I'm not sure. He must have kept up pretty well. I don't know what his status was when he graduated, whether it was cum laude or summa cum laude or what. I can look it up because that information is available in the directory.
But you introduced him to your sister, and they hit it off, and they got married.
Well,
is that how that?
Yeah, I don't know how formally somehow or other when Sis and I were out, we invited him or he invited us. I don't know. Probably I invited him for dinner with my sister or something like that. But he was best known to me, other than on the New York Times and his gradual interest in my sister. He was best known as a poker player. I used to, when I would come into Cambridge from Hingham, sometimes I would play poker with him and his roommates and friends.
You would wager, or it was just?
No, well, poker's poker. I mean, you wager.
What kind of wagering was this?
I don't know,
Was high stakes?
$5.
I see. Which actually at the time would have been
Well, it
a
was
couple of $100
just ordinary
now, I
student
suppose.
kind of game. I don't know how to compare it with other games.
Well,
But he was very good at that. As most things, he was a very talented young man.
well, maybe we can proceed to now. How did you? What was the transition from working at Procter and Gamble to where you? Now you were flying airplanes through your college years. When did you start?
Well, I think it was my junior year that I joined I took the CPTP program, the Civil Pilot Training Program, which the government was running, I suppose in anticipation of getting into the war and needing pilots. But they would take, I don't know what the age limits were, but anyway, I was I suppose 17 years old, and I took the program, and it was lessons I think less than once a week for part of the year, but my lessons ran into the winter season. So when I soloed for the first time, it was on skis. It was a little, something like a Piper Cub, and it was because of the snow at Everett. Everett is north of Boston. I guess there had been a ground snow cover for some time, so they had some of the planes fitted with skis. And landing on skis for your solo is a bit of a nervous making experience because you don't have brakes.
And no bounce like you would with a tire, rubber
well,
tire.
if you have
right?
a bounce, you could break the skis if it's
Yeah.
too much, but there's still you can hit and then bounce and hit again and that sort of thing. But it worked out all right, and because the snow was, I suppose because the snow on the runway was deep enough, maybe 1 or 2 inches, that it provided some sideways friction. So you just didn't go skidding off sideways so much. But anyway, it worked.
So you had said junior years, but were you so you would have probably been about 19 or something, right?
No, junior year I was 17.
17.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That would have been junior year in high school. No, I would have been 20,
And
19 or 20.
and now, but you ended up actually flying quite a bit in college, right?
Well, not a lot, because I joined the Civil Air Patrol, but I didn't have the time to really take part in say as one would in a Boy Scout troop or something like that, go to Civil Air Patrol meetings and things like that. And I couldn't fly too much because it cost money, so much an hour to rent a plane and to get to the airport and so on. So, but I did rent a plane and took one or another of my friends up from time to time, and I went out, flew over Wellesley and over Cambridge and took aerial pictures with an ordinary Kodak camera. Some of them came out surprisingly well. And then I made a trip to Maine to visit a friend up there.
Now, I understand these days you have to log hours and have a logbook that shows how many hours you do before you could solo flight, and then so many hours of solo flight before you could go to the next stage, which is, I guess, instrument flying or something like that. Is that the same type of?
Yeah, basically.
So you had already gotten through to the instrument?
I got through solo. The license was actually, it made you eligible for commercial flying, but not for commercial type aircraft. In other words, with a pilot's license, I think you had quite a scope where you wouldn't have to be relicensed. But you couldn't rent a plane or fly commercially unless you had further training specifically on the aircraft involved. And I never went beyond single engine, light single engine. Excuse me.
Bless you. No, I like your I remember years later flying with you and then Governor of Arizona, your friend Sam Goddard.
Yeah.
Was that something that was Sam also flying back then too?
Well,
or?
Sam flew as a communications officer with the Air Force, and most of his duty was in foreign communications centers. But he flew from one place to another, and I suppose I don't think he had anything in the engineering or technical sense to do with the equipment, but he had a lot to do with the organization of communications for the Air Force and setting up probably staff and management and so on of the communications center at an air base.
Which probably served
So
him
he
in good
was
stead.
flying, but we hardly knew where each other, we really didn't see anything of each other. And Uncle Mac, Mac Boji, was also flying, but he was a navigator in the Air Force.
This was after he graduated.
Yeah.
I see. Now,
And
this is kind of skipping around, so you'll have to excuse me, but do you remember, let's see, it would have been Pearl Harbor, right? Is that when U.S. entered war formally in both fronts?
yeah, we had not been actively or overtly involved in the European War until Pearl Harbor, which caused us to get into both wars, in Pacific and in Europe.
Was that?
And I don't know the exact history of that, how Roosevelt handled it, but
Well, do you remember where you were when you found out about that? That must have been like
well, I was driving from Wellesley College into toward Boston, I guess to go into Boston or someplace near Boston for dinner with Patty, and we heard it on the car radio, and we pulled over and listened, and that was how I heard about Pearl Harbor.
I know we had talked about Patty, but I don't think we talked about Patty on tape yet. She was your girlfriend who was going to school at Wellesley.
That's right.
And she was someone who was your girlfriend for your junior and senior year?
Yeah, well, I didn't really have one freshman year, and I met a couple of girls who'd been introduced by people from Dayton, Ohio, or Oakwood. And Patty eventually was one of them.
Patty was from Oakwood.
Yeah,
Oakwood.
she was in my sister's class, but I hadn't known her at Oakwood.
So she was.
You know, if you're a class ahead of your sister, you don't have any interest in your sister's young friends. Although I knew some of them, but I didn't know Patty. They knew each other, but they weren't buddies the way some other girls were.
Now, Patty was, what is her last name?
Lambert.
And is this the Lambert sisters who became quite famous? Is that no, that's a different person.
Her father was an engineer who had his own factory. He was president of the company and owner of the factory. And she had one brother, Bill Lambert, who later became an engineer, took over the father's factory, and then went into another kind of factory business, manufacturing business.
Now, you saw Patty the month before she passed away or something.
Yeah, well,
like years
that's a
more
whole
recently.
different story. I mean,
Okay.
after I married your mother in Japan, and I came back to visit in the States, on one occasion, I visited Patty. We'd exchange letters rarely, but we did, and she had married Bill Burt, who she dated him even in college, and I felt very jealous of him at some point. But he was an engineer, and they lived outside of Boston, which she liked very much. She loved Boston, the Boston area. And I visited her once where she and Bill lived. In, I forget the name of the town now.
So you knew her husband too then?
Probably after she was married, that probably would have been several years. And then I didn't see her again until Peggy and I had visited, I guess, Stan and Kay in Glastonbury or someone on Cape Cod. And coming back, we stopped by Old Lyme, Connecticut, which is a town near the mouth of the Connecticut River. And I knew she was there. Had her address. I knew that she had lost Bert. Bill Bert had died, so she was a widow, and she had 3 or 4 children, mostly grown up. So Peggy and I stopped by for tea. And she served tea, and she seemed well, very much like she had always been, obviously older. Then we left, and she seemed a little bit absent-minded. She served us tea, and then showing us around the house, she showed us the dining room, which was all set up for tea. So she served us tea once in the living room and had it all set up in the dining room. So a little bit absent-minded, but we didn't think anything of that. And then a week later, I heard from her brother that she had died of heart failure, or something related to heart failure.
Can you just talk a little bit about what you had just said, how Patty, and I suppose you probably feel this way about other people too, but how she didn't seem older even though she was older. Is that something
older, you mean once she was married and we hadn't seen each other?
Right, with this, the last time you saw her, I mean, she was obviously 80-some years ago.
I mean, I saw her after how many years, but to me, she was immediately the same Patty. Of course, Peggy had never seen her before, and Peggy, being a tall person, noticed how short she was, and yet charming, and a lovely hostess, good manners, and so on. But to me, it was immediate. And in her library, her husband had organized, well, his hobby was building organs, pipe organs.
Wow.
He was an electrical engineer or something in his career, but he also had this hobby, and he built very complicated organs. There was one in their living room, and then there was some shelves where he had all his photographs in carousels, you know, the Kodak carousel for slides. Yes. All beautifully organized, all laid out.
Like an engineer.
And then Patty just showed us that in passing, and then she pulled a book out of the bookcase, and it's one I had given her in college.
My goodness.
And she remembered that and knew exactly where it was. And
now, if it's okay, I wanted to ask, you had mentioned how you had felt jealous of Bill Burt. Was that a relationship that formed after you had left her to go to?
No, this was I don't know whether it was senior year, and for one reason or another, I had dated a few other people. Patty and I were never sort of exclusive, but we were very good friends, and so when she started dating an upperclassman, I guess I was a junior and he was a senior, something like that. I got jealous, and I can remember that I sort of assuaged my jealousy by playing Grieg's A minor piano concerto through and through. I don't know whether I had a recording of it or I found it on the radio or what. Well, we had the Crimson Network, the Harvard radio station, and they probably had.
Is that a very rousing kind of a piece, or
No,
is
it's
that
just
a
something
melodramatic? Or?
quite interesting, and it starts off in a rousing manner, but it's good Scandinavian sentimentality involved in it also. It's just peculiar that I remember doing that.
Yeah, that's a. So whenever you hear Grieg's A minor, it must bring up that
Yeah, it
emotion
brings
for
up
you.
that memory.
Any other songs that you associate?
Well, there's a Mozart's clarinet concerto I associate with a much later romantic interlude.
With who now?
Well, that was after I came back to New York and spent some time with Robert and Wythe in their apartment, borrowed their Volvo and
Oh, right.
traveled
With,
around. And the Mitchells introduced Larry later, and the Mitchells did their best to get me to meet women. I was, of course, then a widower, had been for several years. And they introduced one
Nancy.
lady named Nancy, and Nancy was very appealing because she was extremely smart and very good conversationalist, and had an interesting family. And we went out to dinner quite a few times. And when she sort of dismissed me, I had somehow or other associated it with Mozart's clarinet concerto, which has a very melancholy movement. And then it ends up more joyously, I guess, something. But yeah, one associates events with music sometimes.
I think we'll come back to, we'll flag that part, because I think it's going to be very helpful to hear about your feelings and your experiences. A later middle-aged romance in that sense. But just to kind of keep things on track, if we could go back now to again, you had you were working at Procter and Gamble, and it was a kind of a you said you had. It was a deferment of enlisting because you were...
Procter & Gamble made glycerin. And glycerin obviously is part of nitroglycerin and so on. So that's a war material. So I was deferred for being in an engineering company making glycerin.
But then what was the catalyst, or I mean, you entered the Navy.
After a year and a half or so of working, and the war had now started, was going full scale, and I knew how to fly, at least small planes, so I felt it was time to join up. And first time I applied for the Navy Air Force, I was rejected because of my flat feet, but I didn't really see why that should make a difference, and I applied again after a little bit of foot exercising, which I'd almost always done anyway, even as a boy. And I got in.
Can you tell us about that experience? Now you had, it seems remarkable. Again, it's like a recurring theme. Maybe not so unusual, but nonetheless, here you were, it's like you were rejected, yet somehow the situation changed. You persisted.
Yeah, well, it was like, as you said, a recurring theme. It's like being rejected by Harvard and then getting in anyway.
What gave you that strength to not
No,
take it personally.
no
and-
great strength. I mean, some people have gone to great extremes to overcome rejection by the military services. Some of my classmates went up and joined the Canadian forces even before we got into the war. I mean, there are all kinds of motivations.
Now, on that subject of your friends, Bob Boyd had already joined, probably military intelligence or something, and your
Now, I don't
Stan
know just
was
when
also.
Bob joined. I think Ted Barnett had joined the Army Engineers pretty soon, maybe before the war started.
But you
Porter Cole had gone to Canada before the war. In fact, he didn't even attend his graduation. His father had given him a car, and he drove it up to Canada and joined the Canadian forces and stayed with them all through the war.
Now, Porter Cole was a classmate of yours as
Yeah.
well at Harvard. So this was as soon as he graduated, he didn't even go to the graduation. You said he went directly.
I don't know for sure, but either he went to graduation and then immediately drove off to Canada, or he was sure he would get his degree, maybe picked up his diploma or something, and then drove off to Canada. I don't know the exact timing, but he didn't waste any time.
Now, this probably would have been about the time that Joseph Kennedy, who I don't know if he was probably out of Harvard by the time you had gotten there, right? That
I
the
think he was a year ahead.
I see. Now he had passed away on a bombing mission or something. The first.
Joe, you mean, the elder son?
Yes.
No, he graduated 2 or 3 years ahead. I mean, I didn't really know about him until there was publicity given to the fact that the son of the ambassador, Ambassador Kennedy, had been killed. But John Kennedy, J.F. Kennedy, was, I think, a year behind, and I used to deliver the New York Times to his room. But I don't remember actually seeing him. I might have collected his subscription fee from him or something like that.
Just as someone who is for someone of my generation, it's a historical event that had gone by, and so I only hear about it anecdotally from I mean, but for you, this was a experience in which you must have had upperclassmen you knew, even classmen who were perishing, and who were like Peggy's experience with the war.
Oh yeah, her Bo saw her in the morning and then went on a training mission in the afternoon, crashed and was gone. There were a number of our classmates that I knew, I think 1 or 2 on the crew, and others that were on the Crimson or well known in the class, not necessarily my personal friends, who were killed in training.
Oh, that
So
must have
even
been.
before we got into the war, we lost some classmates. And then, of course, one of the naval officers at Pearl Harbor was a classmate.
Is that right?
He was on the Arizona, went down with it, and he was, later it came out, I hadn't known it at the time, but he was instrumental in developing what do they call the bugs that, the animals that multiply on the hulls of vessels and so.
What do you call those? Not plankton. There you go.
What? What?
Barnacles.
Barnacles. He developed a paint finish for steel.
Anti-fouling paint of some kind.
Anti-barnacle paint. And and then was in the Navy. I don't know whether he developed that in, say, during his Harvard classes in science or on his own or in the Navy. But anyway, when he was lost, hardly anybody knew about it, but later on it came out, of course.
Now, let's see, a year and a half after you graduated, you said you joined up. Do you remember that was it like you walked up to a recruiting center, or was it something that was
Well,
the Navy
yes,
ever,
I probably
was it
went
in
to
Hingham or Boston?
Navy recruiting center in Boston.
And then they sign you up for a physical test the
Yeah.
following week or something, and
Yeah, I don't know how soon. Anyway, the first duty was to go to North Carolina to Chapel Hill and join what was known as pre-flight training, which was, things like obstacle courses and boot camp and the rest of it.
oh, so you were already at the basic training when you didn't pass this one qualification, and so you retook that qualification.
Well, that was simply a medical exam.
Okay,
That was flat, a rejection.